The rain fell hard on the burned-out forest as Sergeant Kane stumbled through the blackened mud. His pulse was loud in his ears. His squad was gone. The last explosion had thrown him off a cliff and into a ravine. He had crawled out with a dislocated shoulder and a cracked visor. Now he was alone, behind enemy lines with no signal, no map, and no idea where the enemy was hiding. The war was not supposed to happen. The humans came to this planet to trade, not fight. But something went wrong. The Alien Council was attacked during a summit, and the blame fell on the humans. The skies filled with fire, and every soldier on the ground became a target. Kane had watched ships fall like dying stars before his combs went dark. He dragged his broken leg across another slope, falling twice before forcing himself up. He could not die here. Not now, not like this. His brother had died on Mars. His sister was still waiting back on Earth. He was not going to be another body lost in the mud. Kane leaned against a tree, breathing heavy. The trees were taller than Earth's towers, their leaves glowing dim blue. Even in rain, strange sounds echoed from the forest's sharp alien cries that stopped and started without warning. Something was moving out there, not friendly, not human. He checked his weapon. Only 2 shots left, no medkit, no food. And night was falling fast. He knew the alien night beasts hunted by scent. They called them Kernak. Fast, silent, with bone-thin legs and glowing yellow eyes. They hunted in pairs. And he smelled of blood. He limped forward again, eyes darting. Every shadow felt alive. His HUD blinked, then died completely. No more battery. He was blind in this world now. Blind and nearly dead. That's when he saw her. A tall figure stood in the mist, half hidden by the roots of a giant fallen tree. Her skin was glowing blue. She had long crimson hair flowing over her shoulders. She wasn't holding a weapon. She wasn't running. She just stood there, staring straight at him with silver eyes. Kane raised his weapon out of habit, his breath caught in his throat, but she didn't flinch. She slowly raised one hand and pointed to a narrow path beside her. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Her body moved like she belonged to the forest itself. Kane hesitated. It could be a trap. She could be an enemy. Or worse, a scout for something bigger. But something in her eyes didn't match the chaos around him. They looked tired, sad, not angry, not cruel. He lowered his gun and followed her. The trail twisted behind the roots and opened into a hollowed-out tree, larger than a human house. She pushed a thick curtain of vines aside and stepped in. Kane paused, then followed. Inside was dry, warm, and full of strange glowing stones. He collapsed against the inner wall and finally let go of his breath. She knelt beside him and removed a pouch from her waist. Inside was a cloth and small bottle of green gel. She reached for his wounded leg. He grunted in pain but didn't stop her. Her hands were gentle but firm. The gel was cool, and it numbed his skin instantly. For a long moment, neither spoke. The storm roared outside, wind and rain howling through the branches. But inside the tree, it was still. The alien woman placed a small bowl of fruit near him and moved to sit across the chamber. She folded her arms over her knees and stared at the flames dancing inside a carved stone bowl. Kane didn't understand why she helped him. Every alien he'd met on this world tried to kill him. This one had saved him. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. She looked at him, then placed 2 fingers over her lips. Silence. A warning or protection, he wasn't sure. He ate a piece of the fruit. It was soft and sweet. A warmth spread through his chest. His body finally started to relax. The pain faded, replaced by exhaustion. Still, he watched her closely. Her eyes were always scanning the door, as if expecting someone. Or something. When he finally spoke, it was only a whisper. "Why did you help me?" She didn't answer. But she stood, walked over, and looked down at him. Then, softly she said in his language, "Because my mate died in the fire. And you looked like him." Cain froze. Her voice was calm but carried something heavy. Sorrow, memory, and something else he couldn't name. Before he could reply, she turned away and lay down near the wall. Her eyes stayed open, fixed on the ceiling above, as if she was waiting for a dream that never came. Cain sat there in silence, heart pounding. She had saved him. But why did he feel like he had just stepped into something far deeper than war or survival? Something personal, something dangerous. And he couldn't turn back now. The next morning, the forest was quiet. No sound of beasts, no falling bombs. Only the dripping of rainwater through thick vines. Cain opened his eyes and found the alien woman still sitting beside the embers. She had not moved much through the night. Her name was Ashira. She told him in a soft voice just after sunrise. She spoke his language in short, broken words, enough to understand, enough to explain. Her home was burned. Her mate had died in the first attack, and she had not spoken to another soul in 22 suns. Cain listened with care. She rarely looked at him when she spoke. Her eyes stayed on the fire or the carved wall behind him. But her voice was steady. She told him she once cared for wounded animals in the high plains. She was not a fighter. Not by choice, but now the world had changed. Her people had changed. When the council fell, the tribes turned wild. Many males were sent to fight. Others vanished. She was left with only memory and silence. Until Cain stumbled into her woods, bloodied and breathing. Cain didn't know what to say. He was a soldier, not trained in grief, not trained in sorrow. But when she spoke, he listened. And when she fell quiet, he didn't push her. He simply sat there, still, listening to the same wind that moved between them like a ghost. Ashira gave him a new cloth to wrap his leg. It smelled of herbs and ash. The pain was fading, replaced by a dull warmth. She handed him a rough wooden cane and helped him stand. Her touch was firm, stronger than she looked, yet gentle. Always gentle. He followed her outside, careful not to slip. The path was damp but stable. She walked ahead, tall and graceful, moving like a shadow between thick trunks. They came to a stream that shimmered with green light. Fish swam under. Glowing weeds. The air smelled of sweet moss. Cain bent to wash his face. The cold water hit his skin like truth. He had been so close to death. And now here he was, alive, standing beside an alien who should have left him behind, but didn't. And he still didn't understand why. When he looked up, she was watching him. Her eyes were not kind. They were searching, judging, as if weighing something heavy in her chest. Then, without warning, she asked him, "Do you fear me?" He blinked. "No," he answered. "But I don't understand you." She tilted her head. "Then stay long enough. You will." They walked deeper into the forest. She showed him where her people once held moon dances under giant lantern vines. Now the vines were dark, the stones cracked. She pointed to a pile of broken bones near a burned pillar. "Kernak," she whispered, "came after fire." Cain nodded. He had seen those creatures in training vids, but never this close. The bones were long and bent. The skulls were split. These were not just kills. These were messages, left behind for anyone who dared return. Even a widow. When they returned to the tree home, Ashira lit the fire again. She used flint and a strange black powder. The flame rose fast, filling the chamber with warmth. Cain helped her move a few broken tools to the corner. He found a sharp blade carved from bone. She took it gently and placed it beside her sleeping mat. "My mate made this," she said. "Last thing he gave me." Cain sat across from her. "Do you still wait for him?" he asked, Her gaze turned cold. "No, I buried his name with the ashes. But the world still calls me widow." He didn't know how to answer. The word felt heavy on her tongue, like it meant more than just loss. It was a title, a curse, a mark burned into her soul. And maybe something more. Later that night, she gave him a small flask with red liquid. He sipped it. It burned, but cleared his chest. She called it ashflower brew, a drink for strength, a drink for memory, and sometimes for letting go. Cain felt the fire settle in his chest. He looked at her, the firelight dancing over her face. She was not just beautiful. She was carved from something ancient, something wild and wounded. And he was now inside her world. He leaned forward, his voice low. "You saved me. But why me?" She stared back without blinking. Her answer was simple. "Because I watched you fall from the sky. And I knew you were the one." Cain's heart paused. The one? What did she mean? He opened his mouth, but her hand rose. "Not now. Not yet," she said. Then she turned away and lay down near the flame, her back to him, but her presence still thick in the air between them. He lay back, eyes on the ceiling. The wood above him looked like the inside of a giant heart, beating slow, alive, and somewhere in that silence he began to wonder, who really saved who? Cain awoke before dawn. The fire was low, just glowing embers and soft smoke. Ashira was already outside, her silhouette barely visible through the curtain of vines. He could hear her whispering, but not to him. She stood beneath the tree canopy, both hands resting on the trunk as if speaking to the forest itself. The words were in her language, soft, rhythmic, a chant or a prayer. Cain didn't move. He felt like a stranger in a temple too sacred for his presence. When she came back inside, her face was calm but her eyes were sharp. She looked at him and spoke clearly. "The forest said they are coming." He sat up quickly. "Who is coming?" She didn't answer immediately. She placed dried leaves into the fire and waited as the smoke thickened. Only then did she speak. "My people, or what is left of them, warriors, lost ones. They do not come for peace." Cain reached for his jacket. His pulse quickened. If they found him here, they would assume betrayal. They would kill her and him. She walked over and pressed her hand on his chest. "No, you do not run. Not now. They must see what I see." He stared at her, trying to understand. "What do you see?" She looked straight into his eyes. "You are the proof that not all fire brings death." The meaning behind her words was strange but heavy. She believed in something. Something greater than herself. Cain had seen faith in soldiers before, but never like this. Not from someone who had lost everything. Ashira prepared the chamber. She placed stones in a circle and scattered silver dust across the floor. Then she drew a symbol on Cain's chest using a thick black sap. "This is to shield your soul," she said. "From their eyes. From their teeth." He didn't ask questions, he let her work. Every movement she made was careful and full of purpose. She dressed herself in ceremonial armor made of scaled hide and bone clasps. She looked taller now, fiercer, like a queen of a forgotten tribe. The sound of war horns echoed through the trees, deep and distant. The wind shifted. Cain's skin prickled. Something was approaching, not machines, not tanks. Something older, wilder. The forest seemed to lean away from it. Ashira led him outside. The path was narrow, lit by glowing fruit and flickering lightstones. She walked ahead with her chin high. Cain followed with his cane, limping but alert. His weapon was strapped to his side. He hoped he wouldn't need it. They reached a clearing just as figures began to emerge from the mist. Tall aliens in dark cloaks and face paint. Each held a long staff or spear. Some rode beasts with long necks and blade-like tails. All eyes turned to Ashira, then to Cain. A whisper moved through the group. A human, alive, standing beside one. Of their own, not dead, not caged, but protected. An older warrior stepped forward. His horns were cracked, his cloak torn. But his voice was strong. "Why have you broken the silence, widow?" Ashira did not flinch. "Because the silence has cost too much. This one," she pointed to Cain, "did not come with fire. He came with wounds. And I chose to heal." Gasps and snarls rippled through the group. Some gripped their weapons tighter. Others turned their eyes away. The old warrior sneered. "You let the enemy breathe in your den?" Ashira stepped closer. Her voice rose like thunder. "I let him live. As my mate would have, as the law once allowed, before the fire. Before the madness." Cain watched in silence. He was ready to speak, but she shook her head slightly. This was her moment, her world. He was the symbol, not the speaker. The warrior turned to Cain. "Do you fear us, human?" Cain straightened his back. "No, but I respect you. And I didn't come here to fight." A long silence followed. The warriors stared at each other, unsure. Then the old one barked, "Prove it. Touch the flame." Cain looked at Ashira. She nodded. He stepped forward as one of the aliens lit a small brazier in the center of the clearing. The flame burned white and blue. Cold fire. Sacred fire. It hissed as he approached. He reached out his hand. The heat wasn't like normal fire. It didn't burn skin. It burned fear. It pulled memories from his bones. He saw Mars. He saw his brother. He saw Ashira's face. Then silence. The fire accepted him. The warriors stepped back, their eyes wide. The old one dropped to one knee. "The flame speaks." The widow was right. Ashira exhaled. Her body softened. But Cain still felt the weight in the air. He had been accepted, but not fully. Not yet. There was something deeper behind her eyes as she looked at him, something unspoken, something hidden beneath her kindness. That night, as they returned to the tree home, she said, "Little." Only once did she speak. "You are more than soldier now. You are a sign." Cain didn't know what that meant, but he knew this wasn't just about peace anymore. It was about something buried inside her, something that had nothing to do with war or warriors, and he was now a part of it. The next morning came with a strange stillness. No birds called. No wind rustled the leaves. Cain woke up with the feeling that something had shifted in the air. Ashira was already gone from the shelter, but her scent still lingered like burnt sage and flowers. He stepped outside slowly. His leg was still weak but stronger now. The forest light shimmered through layers of fog. A line of fresh footprints led away from the tree and disappeared into the heavy moss. Cain followed them without a word. He found her standing on a wide stone slab in the middle of an open glade. Her arms were raised and her voice carried low, whispering something ancient. She didn't turn when he approached. Her eyes were closed, her body still as stone. He waited. When she finally lowered her arms, she turned and looked at him. "Today we bind names," she said. He didn't understand. She stepped aside and pointed at a small altar carved into the stone. It held a bowl of black ink and a single curved blade. "This is not a bond of blood," she said. "It is a bond of choice. You may still leave." Cain stepped forward. "And if I stay?" She didn't smile. "Then your name will rest beside mine, forever, even if the stars forget us." He looked at the blade. It was not sharp enough to kill, but enough to mark. Enough to remember. Ashira took the blade and dragged it gently across her palm. A single drop of blue blood fell into the ink. She handed the blade to him. Cain hesitated. Then, slowly, he made the same cut across his palm. A drop of red joined the blue. The ink shimmered. Alive. Ashira took a reed brush and dipped it. Then she began to draw on the stone. She painted his name in her language, shaped in curved symbols. And flame marks. Beside it, she added her own. Then she placed her hand over the joined marks. "You are now part of this world. Not just its war," she said. He knelt beside her. The bond felt real. Not magic, not ritual, but something living. Like roots pulling him into soil that had waited for him all this time. Later, as they walked back through the woods, Ashira spoke with softer words. She told him about her life before the war. She had loved music. She had raised twin daughters before sickness took them. Her mate had been a builder of bridges made from light thread. Cain listened with quiet respect. She was not just a warrior or a widow, she was a world. A forgotten story now blooming again. And somehow he had been written into her pages. They returned to the shelter as night fell. The forest was tense again. Distant howls echoed between the cliffs. Ashira moved to the edge of the den and lit 6 fires in a circle. "They are watching," she said. "Not the warriors." Something older. Cain sat close to the fire. "What are they?" he asked. She stared into the flames. "Spirits. Guardians. Or maybe just the forest dreaming." She walked over and placed a necklace of carved bone in his hand. "Wear this. It carries my mark. No beast will touch you while it burns in the fire's light." He nodded and slipped it over his neck. It was warm to the touch, as if alive, as if it recognized him. That night they did not sleep. The fire never died. Shadows danced against the tree walls. Cain felt something near the edge of the glade, watching, breathing, waiting for the light to fail. Ashira moved closer to him, not afraid, just calm. "They test you," she said, "to see if your soul belongs." Cain didn't speak. He just placed his hand over hers. The silence between them became something solid, something safe. The night passed without attack. The spirits or beasts or whatever they were did not cross the fire. When dawn came, the air was warmer, softer, like the land itself had exhaled. Ashira stood and stretched her arms to the sky. "They will not return," she said. "You are part of the forest now." Cain felt the truth in her voice. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was becoming something more. Something rooted in the ashes and the green. But he still didn't know the truth behind her gaze, why she had chosen him, what she still held back, and he knew the answer would change everything. 3 days passed without threat. Cain helped repair the tree home. He learned to grind roots into powder and weave rope from the hair-like fibers of bark. Ashira showed him how to harvest light sap without waking the sleeping worms beneath it. They did not speak of war, not anymore. Their days became quiet work, and their nights filled with slow conversation beside the fire. But Cain noticed something different in Ashira's eyes. A flicker of thought she never spoke. A question held back. She watched him often when she thought he wasn't looking. Her gaze was not cold. It was full of memory. As if she saw someone else standing in his skin. Someone lost. Someone she still waited for in secret. Cain tried not to press her. But one night, as the moon burned green above the treetops, he finally asked her, who was he? She looked into the fire for a long time, then she answered. He was brave, strong, but not like the others. He built instead of destroyed. He sang when others roared. And when the sky fell, he died trying to protect children not his own. Cain felt the weight of those words. They weren't just about the past. They were still alive in her heart. Alive in the way she moved. In the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. She stood and walked to a small stone chest carved into the floor. She opened it and pulled out a thin sheet of crystal. A flick of her finger lit it up. A soft blue glow revealed the image of her mate. Cain stared. His breath caught. The face on the crystal was not human. But it was close, strong jaw. Long hair, kind eyes. Eyes that looked almost like his own. Ashira watched him with a steady gaze. You see it too, she said. He nodded slowly. Yes, I look like him. She didn't smile. She only lowered the crystal and placed it back in the chest. Then she turned to him. When I found you in the forest, I thought the forest had sent him back, changed, reborn, but you were not him. You were someone new. Kane sat down, the firelight washing over his skin. And yet you helped me. Why? She walked closer. Her steps were slow, her voice quiet. Because I hoped I could stop hurting. If I helped you live, maybe I could. Finally stop dying inside. The silence that followed was heavy, real. It was not just grief anymore. It was truth shared without defense. Kane understood now. He was more than a guest, more than a soldier. He had become part of her healing. And maybe something more. That night, as the fire burned low, Ashira placed her hand gently on his chest. There is one more thing you must know, she said. He looked into her eyes. Tell me. She stepped back and opened a wooden panel hidden behind a wall of moss. Behind it lay a long sleeping pod. Old, human-made, covered in vines, but still glowing faintly with power. Kane's heart stopped. That's Earth Tech. That's a stasis pod. Ashira nodded. It crashed here 5 cycles ago. Inside was a child. A human child. I raised her for 3 years before the sickness took her. Kane stared at the pod. A human child? How? She was left behind in a failed colony ship. The escape pods scattered during re-entry. Hers landed in my forest. Kane felt the bow. Ground shift under him. Ashira had loved a human child. Had raised her, and had buried her. No wonder she had looked at him the way she did. He wasn't just a stranger. He was a ghost of 2 pasts colliding in her eyes. You never told the others, he said. She shook her head. They would call it betrayal. Loving a human child, saving the human soldier. They do not understand, but I do. And now you must choose. He stood still. Choose what? She looked at him, her eyes full of storm and sorrow. Stay, and become more than just a soldier. Or leave, and take this pain back to your world. Kane didn't answer right away. His thoughts were fire and wind. But one thing was certain. Nothing about this was war anymore. This was something deeper. Something that could not be ignored. Kane sat by the stasis pod long after Ashira had gone quiet. The soft hum of old human tech still buzzed beneath the vines. His fingers traced the edge of the panel. It was real. The girl had been real. And now the past was reaching through her to touch him. The forest felt smaller that day. Shadows pressed. The wind had stopped moving. Even the birds remained silent. Ashira moved without speaking. Her steps were sharp. Her face unreadable. She was waiting for his answer. Waiting to see if he would stay. He followed her to the clearing. The same place where she had once faced her people. But now, the warriors were returning. The scouts had seen human forces moving near the western cliffs. A clash was coming. One that could burn the forest down again. Ashira stood in front of them. This time she was not just a widow. She was a leader. Her voice was stronger. The war returns. The humans come not for peace. But this one, she pointed at Kane, has lived among us. He has shared our bread. He carries my mark. The old warrior stepped forward again. His eyes narrowed. Then he must speak for them. If he does not, we fight. Kane stepped forward. His heart was steady. I do not speak for Earth. I speak only for myself. I did not come to fight. But if war reaches this forest, I will not run. The warriors murmured. Some nodded. Others turned away. One young fighter stepped closer. Will you kill your own kind for us? Kane didn't blink. I will protect what matters. My kind is not only blood. It is choice. And I choose to stand with her. Ashira looked at him. The air between them thickened with unspoken meaning. Then she turned to the others. He stays, by his own words. If any strike him, they strike me. The gathering broke apart slowly. Some left in silence. Others lingered, watching Cain with doubt. But no one challenged him. The forest had shifted again. And this time it held him tighter. Back in the shelter, Ashira prepared a small fire. She crushed black seeds and stirred them into a boiling cup. She handed it to Cain. "This is the drink of truth," she said. "It shows what is hidden." He sipped it, bitter and hot. It burned his tongue, then his chest. Then something cracked open behind his eyes. He saw flashes, a field of bones, a child's laughter, her mate's face turning to ash, and her alone, always alone, until he dropped the cup. Sweat on his skin, his breath shallow. Ashira was beside him, steady. "Now you see," she said. He looked up. "You never wanted to save me. You wanted to save yourself." She nodded slowly. "Yes, and I still do, but not from death. From emptiness." She reached into the wall and pulled out a small glowing stone. Inside was a message, a human transmission. It played a broken voice. "Echo 6 to command. We lost the child's signal. Pod was ejected. Search abandoned." King listened. His stomach turned. They had left her. The child Ashira raised had been left by his own people. And now he stood in their place. Another soldier. Another shadow of failure. "You were never the enemy," he said. "No," she answered. "But I was a reminder. And that was enough to make me dangerous." He stood slowly. The weight in his chest was sharp, but clear. He understood now. She had offered shelter not out of pity. Not even out of love, but out of hope. A hope that someone would finally stay. She stepped closer. "Do you still want to leave?" He looked. At her, then at the forest beyond. "I don't know where I belong, but I know where I was found." Her eyes glistened. Not with sorrow, but with something close to peace. She reached out and took his hand. "Then you are no longer lost." The fire between them flickered. The shelter breathed around them. And somewhere outside, the forest watched in silence. Asterisk. The sky burned orange as warships passed over the canopy. The silence of the forest broke under their thunder. Ashira stood tall at the entrance of her tree home, her spear lit with cold fire. Cain stood beside her, armor half repaired, gun slung low but ready. They had not spoken since dawn. Words no longer mattered. Only choice. And Cain had made his. Human boots landed on the far ridge. Soldiers fanned out. Drones buzzed through the air like angry insects. Cain recognized the banner. A recovery unit. They weren't here to fight. They were here to take. A voice came from a loudspeaker. "Identify yourself, soldier. You are out of bounds. Come forward for debrief." Cain stepped forward slowly, his hand raised. But not in surrender. In warning. "I am Sergeant Cain, Echo. Division. I've survived because of her. She's not the enemy. If you try to harm her or this land, I won't let you." There was silence. Then another voice cut in. "He's gone native. Get a stun team down there." Cain turned to Ashira. "They won't listen to words." "I know," she said. "But they will listen to what you become." He looked at her. The firelight danced in her eyes. She was not just a widow anymore. She was a beginning. He stepped back and pulled the necklace she had given him off his neck. He held it high. "This is my symbol now. I stand for something new. Something they left behind." The soldiers hesitated. A few lowered their weapons. One of them stepped forward. Her voice shook. "That mark, that's from the forest tribes. Why do you wear it?" "Because they saved a child we abandoned, and gave a home to a man we would have let die. That matters more than orders." There was a long pause. The commander above gave no further reply. The drones hovered for a moment. Then they pulled back. The ships turned. And one by one, they left the sky. The forest exhaled. Cain stood still, unsure if what just happened was real. Ashira walked to his side and touched his shoulder. They left because they saw your roots. He looked at her confused. You planted yourself here, not in their ground, in mine. And they felt it. Cain sat down on the grass, his breath heavy. The weight of years pressing down on his spine. So what am I now? Ashira knelt beside him. You are a man reborn. A soldier. Who chose not to follow, but to stay. That makes you dangerous. And beautiful. They stayed like that while the sun dipped low. The tree above them glowed in golden threads. The roots pulsed faintly. Alive. Aware. Later, Ashira led him to the ridge. There stood a new pillar made from stone and lightwood. She handed him the brush dipped in mixed ink. Add your name, she said. Not the one they gave you. The one you've earned. Cain thought for a long time. Then, slowly, he wrote a name in her language. The marks were not perfect, but they were true. She nodded. Now the forest will remember you. He turned to her. And you? I remembered. You before I even met you, she said. The fire crackled in the distance. The stars blinked above. And two figures stood side by side, not as human and alien, not as soldier and widow, but as the beginning of something the war could never destroy. Roots. Deeper than blood had taken hold, and neither of them would walk alone again.